All right, well, welcome to today's podcast. We are delighted to have Sheriff Clay Myers of the Kittitas County Sheriff's Office with us today, and we are just really thrilled about this conversation to have that we're about to have with with Phil and Clay.
Welcome, Clay. We've always respected you and your work here in the county, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say about things that inspire us. So, as we mentioned in the intro, we have three different questions. And the first one is, what inspires you about Kittitas County? What do you like? What gives you heart?
Well, there's so much about this county, and first off, thank you guys for having me here.
Our pleasure.
First and foremost, I'd say that geographically, it's just one of the most beautiful places I think in the country. It's fantastic. There's so much here. We are big recreationalists, so a lot to do. The community itself, and as you know, as the sheriff, from everything from the Columbia River to Snoqualmie Pass, and nearly Sela to Blewett Pass is the community. So when I speak of the community, I'm speaking of the entire, the whole Hee Haw gang, everybody.
And fantastic.
So what inspires me about Kittitas County is our independence and our resilience. Kittitas County is just one of the most resilient communities that I've been in. And I've been in quite a few. I travel a lot because of work and work with a lot of sheriffs across the West, really. And Kittitas County is independent and it's resilient. And it's displayed that time and time again. We've had avalanches and we've had landslides and we've had, the Yakima Canyon, Snoqualmie Pass, big landslides down there. And we've had fires that have devastated different areas of our community and put people out of their homes, and our community just steps up and deals with it, helps each other, and they move on. They just take things. They don't curl up in a ball and weep. They don't, they just deal with it. And when you have that blessing, it's just heart lifting, and it just makes you be proud to be a part of it. So I'd say if I had to define it in 2 words, it'd be that.
It makes me think about all of the, you and I and Phil included have been to many fundraisers. Taylor Bridge Fire comes to mind. The Taylor Bridge Fire happened. It was awful. I remember on Main Street there was in Ellensburg here there was a storefront that got converted into a clothing bank and a food bank and a household wares bank. And people were lined up. I remember at one point I stopped to drop some stuff off and to check in on the people that were running the store, and I couldn't get in there because there was such a line of people both accessing the store and also dropping stuff off at the store. And then I think about the fundraisers that we attend.
A lot of them.
We have so many nonprofits. I really like what you said. You don't curl up in a ball and weep.
I've been in communities that do. The bad thing happens. Their people are very comfortable in their comfort zone, and things are going well. But when things, when they go off the rails, when there's devastating things that impact them, they're not resilient. They don't know what to do, and they lack direction. And we live in a community that, absent direction, they'll go. They're going to do something.
Ooh, I love that. Absent direction, they will go.
Yeah,
and I think you're right. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I think you're right.
They do. They've done it. We've witnessed it and been a part of it. Taylor Bridge Fire is a good one. That was our first real test, I think, with respect to managing a large incident like that, from our emergency operations center and our response and all of those things. And did we do everything right? No. It was a big learning experience, and everybody was learning on the fly. But we learned a lot. And one of the things that we learned in a community like this, we had to have a volunteer manager. We literally, because we had so many people volunteering and coming out to help, and many of them were suffering loss themselves. And they got themselves out, they got their family, turned right back around and said, what can we do to help? And the high school up there having for the donation management.
Yeah.
we had donations coming in from everywhere, and we learned that when we spin up our emergency operations center, we need to actually branch out our logistics and have somebody specifically in charge of donations and managing volunteers. A lot of communities don't have that problem.
How do you, obviously you're in the emergency preparedness business through your sheriff's office. How do you manage that when there's nothing happening? Everything is roses and puppy dogs and rainbows, and then all of a sudden something terrible happens. How do you keep those people that are going to be serving that space ready to activate? How do you do that?
We train. We train and we go over our plans. We run drills. We come up with hypotheticals based on things that have occurred in other areas and things that have occurred here.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll run tabletop exercises. We'll work the problem and identify resources. Then we'll run actual drills. Mm. So we take it pretty seriously, and our community always participates, which is fantastic. We have a lot of volunteers that are willing to just do whatever's needed.
Yeah, that's cool to be able to just ask a person, "Would you come to this exercise and volunteer for X position?" And people respond to that. Very cool.
Yeah, the other big benefit to this community, it's not just the independence and resilience of the community itself. Everybody plays well together. Oh. All of our law enforcement agencies work very well together. Emergency management, all of the units work well together. Our first responders, the fire services, we all work well together. That doesn't happen everywhere. So we feel very blessed about that. Nobody's trying to get in each other's lanes or outdo each other. There was I think it was Teddy Roosevelt, I can't remember for sure. I do have the poster, I put it up when we activate the EOC. And it says, it's amazing what we can accomplish when nobody cares who gets the credit.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
And this is one of those communities.
And I've been in the Valley now since 1979. It seems to be better now than it was, say, 30 years ago. Yeah. Do you think that that's the case? And if so, what's kind of contributed to that?
I think we've experienced more. Mm-hmm. Large-scale fires like this were not a common thing. The first 15 years that I lived here, we had one small fire that I can recall. And so, for whatever reason, and there's lots of them, we have experienced more fires in the Pacific Northwest. That's not to say they don't have them in other places, they do, but we've experienced more of those sort of large-scale events, and so it's pushed this into the front. And again, we learn every time.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the key. Everybody learns. Everybody seems to want to learn. Everybody wants to improve. And as you said, that's not true of a lot of communities.
No, we did some things wrong.
Sure.
We did some things wrong. We learned a lot about evacuations. A lot of us, myself included, were okay. The people are in danger here. We have to evacuate them, and for their own safety, and not recognizing the different layers of authority with respect to evacuation. Mm. We learned that we don't have the authority to force somebody off of their property, even if they're in danger. And I agree with that. It's the right thing. But out in the field, we struggled with that a little bit. So fortunately, nothing horrible happened. We upset a few folks, but we learned from it. Mm-hmm. And that's where those drills and training, continuous training. The other thing we incorporated into our training, literally during the Taylor Bridge fire, was legal. We brought legal in. Mm. And so that we could also train on all of the authority, responsibility, and restrictions.
Oh, fascinating.
Mm-hmm. So
checks and balances.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's kind of transition into our second question.
It's a good segue, actually.
Yeah, it is. We're doing a lot of learning as a community, but what are our challenges? What do we need to learn yet?
That's a little bit tougher question, I think, because we're going through some very challenging times right now.
We are.
And I think that we're, it's what I consider the outside pressures.
Mm-hmm.
Those things that we that we in our community don't control, but that impact us. And our cost of living is one of those things.
Right.
Right. That's a big challenge for us right now, and it spreads out to a lot of different areas. Um, when you have people here that can't afford, young couples that can't afford to buy a home, they're starting out, they're starting their new life, and they can't afford to buy a home. They can barely afford to rent a home. Those sort of things are challenges that come from a place that we don't control. Another challenge right now is on the, I'll call it the political end. There's a lot of pressure right now with respect to immigration, a lot of fear, some manufactured, some real, and we are struggling. I think we're struggling with the state and the federal government clashing, and that doesn't help anybody.
No, it doesn't.
It really doesn't help anybody, and law enforcement is caught right in the middle of that because we have competing laws. We have well-meaning. I think both are well-meaning, but federal laws with respect to immigration are here, and we have state laws that conflict with those, and it puts law enforcement right in the middle. And these entities need to work together. They need to solve this problem because law enforcement can't solve this problem. We're not immigration officers, and immigration is a federal thing, and so we investigate crimes irrespective of any of those things. And so state law shouldn't place restrictions on us that make it harder for us to conduct those investigations and solve crimes. And federal law shouldn't try to push us into doing something that we don't have the authority to do. And so right now, the federal government and the state government are battling, and they're drawing hard lines. And it's disappointing. They should be working together to try to solve this and find some common ground and find a way to work together, not in opposition, because they're doing a disservice to the community. And I hate criticizing. I don't like criticizing, but well, it's wrong. That's all there is to it. It's wrong. And so I think that's a big challenge for us.
Yeah.
And I think that locally, we're pretty blessed. Locally, our communities are doing a good job. They support each other. They support our local government. I feel that our local government is mostly in sync with the communities, and we get a lot of support. So lessons that we can still learn. I don't know. That's a tougher one.
One of the things, there's a number of things I appreciate about you. You and I have been friends, I don't know, for a number of years.
Many years,
and I appreciate you very much. And one of the things that I appreciate about you is that you're unflappable. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
How you show up. You're unflappable. Everything's going to be fine, and pretty stoic. My wife and I were visiting this morning, and she was talking about. She works at Central Washington University, as you know, and there's a lot of her students are really scared, and as a result, she's scared. As you mentioned, for lots of reasons. Some made up, some not. Some are real. Some of these fears. As our sheriff, what would you say to people who are scared right now, who have fear in their hearts? What would you say to maybe help them let go of some of that fear?
You don't have to fear local law enforcement. And it's unfortunate. There's a lot of people that are, making a living and have focused their existence on creating fear between local law enforcement and their community.
Right.
And it's unfortunate. It really is, because there are going to be circumstances that can support that argument. We're human, and law enforcement is going to make mistakes. And occasionally, we will get somebody in law enforcement that just never should be.
Sure, amateurs everywhere.
Absolutely. And sometimes they slip through the cracks, but they're not they don't define law enforcement. They don't define all of us. And first and foremost, I think that our community is pretty good at separating the noise. We have a relationship with our community and they understand that. But there's a lot of folks here, like Central, that come from other communities. And that noise, unfortunately, does reach a lot of our young people. They believe it, even though they've never experienced anything, and they can't point to anything other than somebody has convinced them they need to be afraid.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we even have some people, in our government that push that agenda. So I would say to them that don't be lazy. Form your own opinion. We have a lot of people that are so lazy they don't even form their own opinion. They go get somebody else's.
Right, that's true.
So form your own opinion. And if you have a concern about something or some entity, look into it yourself. And when you're doing that, listen with a willingness to be convinced otherwise. And if you do that, I think that most people will find, things aren't that bad. I don't have to be concerned. I don't have to be afraid.
That last thing you said about willingness to be convinced, that's hard for a lot of people. They are not willing to be convinced, even in the face of facts to the contrary, stick to their opinion.
Well, I think that most people don't, and I read this somewhere. I wish I could take credit for it. But I think that most people don't actually search for the truth. They search for evidence that what they believe is true.
Right.
And
that's true.
That's the case a lot of times. So
I think more and more. I've been surfing news channels lately. Kind of to your point, gather evidence.
Did you just like frustration?
I want to to the best I can. I want to know what's really happening. And if I focus on one news channel, I get a bias, and if I focus on another, I get a different bias. And if I focus on another, I get yet a third bias. So I've been looking at similar or the same news story. Pick any. The plane that's flipped upside down. And it is absolutely fascinating if you look at it from an objective point of view, how each news channel spins the story such that it fits into their narrative. Each one. So each news channel that we are watching, if you're watching one news channel, you're getting one narrative, one bias, and they're all filled with fear. I haven't found one that is not, thriving with fear. So I really appreciate what you said, and that don't be lazy. Go out and try and find the information yourself, and if possible, get out of the news cycle and actually go see the people. If it's possible, go talk to the people that are the news story, because that's where it's really coming from. And all of us, I think, the three of us have had the privilege of being in some sort of a local news story. I know I have. Phil, I've seen Phil on the front page of the paper before. I've certainly seen you on the front page of the paper. And never, in my opinion, have I ever been represented totally and wholly accurately, in my opinion, that I was sharing, because the person who was telling the story had an opinion. And so I just think it's fascinating.
There's something that came over social media a couple of days ago that had classified all the media into one of 5 categories: far right, near right, center, near left, and far left. And it's really interesting to look to see which organizations fell into which category. And I'd like to believe the ones in the center, BBC led the list, and the ones in the center are actually pretty neutral. So
the Walter Cronkites of news, if you will.
Well, actually, CBS was to the left.
I mean, that Walter Cronkite from Days Gone By.
Oh, Days Gone By, yeah. But there are certain organizations that have more of a centrality in their point of view, and ones that are radical to either end of the spectrum. But it was really interesting to see that.
Well, we don't. In a lot of ways, I think, and I hate to say we because it's not we, but many of us in this country have lost our, I call it statesmanship. We've lost statesmanship. We haven't lost the ability to sit down and have a discussion and come to some sort of a solution that best represents everybody. In other words, it best solves the solution. And we haven't lost that. We've given it up.
Oh.
We've chosen to not participate in that manner anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And our opposing sides used to come together to solve a problem and to develop direction for our country or our community that was in the best interest of our community and our country. And because they had opposing views, they were able to sit down and share those opposing views so that each side, however many sides there were, had a better perspective of the whole problem. That drives a better solution.
Yeah.
Always drives a better solution.
Yeah.
And then they would agree this is the best solution. We're all a little disappointed. That's okay. But it's a better solution, and we all recognize that. And we push that out, and it benefits the people. We have chosen to give that up, and now it appears that these sides are entrenched, and it can only be my way, and it has to be all my way.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever your way is wrong. And I will do whatever it takes. And demonization of the other party or the representative seems to be the primary tool right now. We will demonize anybody that doesn't agree with us or our side, and we will attack them, and we will try to shut them down so that we can prevail.
Yeah.
It goes back to that whole notion that if I can demean you, that somehow elevates me. It does not.
That's not.
It does not.
Slanders both.
That seems to be the.
Let me challenge that a little bit, Clay.
Sure.
As I look at you, and you represent the statesperson approach, and I think the line about all politics are local. I think at the local level here, we have a lot of people who are willing to sit down and talk, and willing to sit down.
I think eager, more than willing. I think it's eager.
I want to do it, and to me, it seems to get worse. You get to the state level, okay, some problems there. Get to the national level, I think it really represents what you're saying at the national level. But I'm more optimistic about the local level.
And that's kind of where we're going with this. I think that you're 100% right. The biggest challenge we have is that everybody is supposed to sort of look up to the examples, and our federal government is supposed to be the top example.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that are supposed to be setting the example, and they're the ones that are supposed to be pressuring the states thereby pressuring the local communities to do the right thing the right way. It's very difficult when it's like an adult and their children. If an adult does the wrong thing, the message they're conveying to their children is it's okay to do the wrong thing. Our federal government is setting that example now.
Yeah.
Locally here,
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, locally, I'm extremely optimistic because I can sit down and often do with opposing views. It doesn't matter if it's politics, if it's gender identity, it doesn't matter what the topic is. Sit down with members in our community and have a discussion and share ideas and come to an understanding. We're not always going to agree, and that's okay. We don't need to agree.
Not supposed to.
Yeah, we're not supposed to. We're supposed to provide these opposing views to come up with a better solution. And are there areas that we can improve that in our locally? Yes, there are. One of the things that harms us, because it comes all the way from the national all the way down, is a lot of people are convinced that if you are conservative, you're these things.
Right. Yeah.
That's what you are. That's all that you represent. And if you're if you're liberal, you're all of these things, and that's what you are, and that's what you represent. And that's wrong. We have to learn who each other are. We have
Absolutely.
to take the time to get to know each other. Then we can have those productive conversations.
We're getting close to being out of time.
It's a perfect segue.
Yeah,
It's a perfect
into
segue.
how do we tell whether or not we're successful?
Yeah. When will we know when our community is sitting down at the table with each other and discussing ideas that may be difficult to discuss and yet making progress? How will we know when that's happening?
I think I think that in a lot of ways we do that now, like we were just saying. We're very fortunate. Um, Outside extremist influences, I think that we have to be aware of those, and I think we literally have to kind of combat those. We have to be willing to listen to what they say, but not be pressured into a direction just based on emotion, because we're humans, right? We make our decisions based on emotion.
Right.
We vote based on emotion. We support things based on emotion. That's what we do. And some people are very, very good at triggering just the right emotions at just the right time to influence people to do or say or be part of a certain thing. And we have to stay vigilant in that and not fall into those things. So how do we know when we continue to be successful in our decision making, when our community continues to thrive like it's doing now with respect to um, you know how we address each other, how we deal with emergencies, how we just live our day-to-day lives. And I think that in a lot of ways we are there. Room to improve.
Nice. Yeah.
But I feel as though that's what's great about being here. We could still sit down and we can still do that.
This is you and I had a great conversation after Rotary last week, and I was so looking forward to this conversation for this podcast because I wanted other people to hear your point of view, and you have not disappointed. I really appreciate your unflappable ways of being. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and again, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, perfect timing. 28
Very,
minutes.
There we go.
Very good. Thank you, Clay. Thank
Time
you very
for
much.
Well, thank you. It's been a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Clay. Appreciate you.
Bye, everybody.
See you, everybody. We'll see you again soon.
Yep. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.